I think that one of the problems today in today's politics is the fact that we don't have any leadership. Now, yes, now obviously there are a lot of important issues that really drive home the day. I mean, we have a bad economy. We got problems with healthcare. Education is in the trash. We have a war in Afghanistan going on, and for a couple of months still in Iraq. We got just so many. We got a deficit that's looming out of control. We got obviously a problem with lobbying and money in politics, and just so many problems that we have in our country these days. But however, I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think any of these issues are as important as the quality of leadership. Because the fact of the matter is, leadership drives the day, okay? It drives every single issue. And leadership is really, in my opinion, what is lacking in American politics today. In the lack of leadership is why we have a poor economy, why we have poor health care, why we have poor education, why we have a lot of corruption and lobbyists running around Washington, D.C. like they own the place, why we just can't seem to get out of wars that a majority of the American people want us to get out of. I mean, that is a huge problem, in my opinion, because it is driving home these issues and why they remain to be so important today. And I don't really see a leader right now in politics. All right? I mean, I hate to say, I mean, it hurts because, I mean, I love this country. I want this country to succeed. But I don't see a leader in today's politics. And I think that is a huge problem. Okay? And I don't even remember the last true leader we had in politics, because it just seems like that one after the other, I mean, politicians just go along to get along, and it's not about their conscience, it's not about what they know is right, it's not what they think is right, it's not what their constituents want them to fight for. Instead, it almost seems like, in my opinion, that politics is a game to both the Republicans and the Democrats. Okay, it almost seems like, and that, I think, is really driving home the problem and why everything is so screwed right now in this country. I honestly do. I mean, and that's a concern. And I wanted to make this video because I mean, we already know Obama is not a leader, okay? I mean, he basically does what he needs to do in order to get elected, and that's my opinion of him. And like I said, it's sad to say, because I voted for him in the last election, and like I said, I have the signs back there that you could see, the Barack Obama stickers. I mean, I believed in the guy back in 2008. Well, semi-believed in him. I liked other people more than him, but in the end, I thought he was I thought he was. I mean, he seemed to have the leadership skills when he was running for president, and then when he got elected, then he then everything went downhill, it seemed, because then he botched his cabinet picks, because he picked two tax evaders, basically. One of them is still there now in Timothy Geithner. And the other one was, I think, Daschle. I think Tom Daschle, a former Senate Majority Leader. He also didn't pay his taxes. And I wonder how the transition team from Obama got that so wrong, and why Obama didn't really, because in my opinion, he probably didn't look into these people, first off. And then second of all, in the case of Geithner, I mean, he ran basically as someone who is not a lobbyist president like former President Bush was, or even Clinton was, in a sense. I mean, he didn't run as that, but he ended up being that. Because Tim Geithner, he was a Goldman Sachs Treasury Secretary, or not Treasury Secretary, well, he's the Treasury Secretary now, but he was a Goldman Sachs executive prior to being picked by Obama to run the Treasury Department. Then you have Eric Holder, who's also aligned with special interest groups and bankers. And you can keep going down the line of people that were in the pockets of, and even Bill Daley, the White House Chief of Staff now, another guy who, again, is aligned with, I mean, he's buddies with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, who happen to be pushing the latest job-killing free trade deals that we signed with Panama, Colombia, and South Korea, who either are sympathetic to dictators, are dictatorships themselves, or are very, very poor when it comes to being ranked with human rights. And like I said, Daley probably pushed these trade deals in the White House. And again, this was the same President Obama in 2008 said that he would not support those trade deals, quote, over his dead body. But he signed those trade deals into law. And then he had the nerve to go to Michigan with the South Korean president. And by the way, South Korea hires North Korean slaves that fund Kim Jong-il's nuclear weapons program. But anyway, brings the South Korean president with him to Michigan to make a political statement over politics, because he knows Michigan's a swing state, after he just stabbed all of them in the back to help his buddies at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and on Wall Street and in corporate America and his Chinese corporation buddies that funded his campaign. Because guess who basically is the job czar at the White House? His name is Jeffrey Immelt, who runs GE, General Electric, who is a huge outsourcer of American jobs to Chinese labor, which basically gets paid nothing. And like I said, in 2008, Obama did not run as that, but then he got in and all of his leadership qualities went down the tubes. Okay, and like I said, then, I mean, after the transition team, then you had the stimulus bill. He could have fought, he could have went to Maine, Massachusetts, or, well, not Massachusetts, still was Democrat then, but Maine, I mean, he could have went to Pennsylvania when Arlen Specter was a Republican. Maybe a couple of the blue dog states, go to their fallen infrastructure and pound home the fact that we need infrastructure spending here. And we could have had a bigger stimulus that could have put more people to work, rather than these gimmicks that ended up being a stimulus that basically propped up the states and didn't address the jobs concern, which was definitely not what FDR did. And when FDR had stimulus, he directed him. I mean, the Tennessee Valley Authority, that was a stimulus project, but it was done by American workers. The public works projects that he created, those were jobs. And there are so many fallen bridges and roads in this country, and Obama didn't really address that issue. Instead, he just sent the money to the states and propped up states from laying off workers. He basically delayed the inevitable, which was that a lot of government employees were going to have to be laid off because we no longer have the revenue to support all these programs. So he basically delayed the inevitable to make him, or try to make himself look good, when he could have really went bold with the bully pulpit he would have had from just winning the 2008 election and inspiring so many Americans that believed in him. So that's just one example of no leadership. And even in the Senate, Harry Reid is one of the most spineless people I've ever seen in my life. And you have a lot of spineless senators, basically, in the Senate that would rather fight for their buddies who fill their campaign war chests and get them reelected and reelected and reelected and turn them into career politicians than what's right for the American people. And I think that some of these Americans are now starting to finally wake up and realize that. And even in the Republican presidential campaign right now, same thing. No leadership. Last week's debate, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, there was a debate on CNN. Anderson Cooper moderated it, and that was probably one of the worst debates I have ever seen. And those were some of the most pathetic individuals out there, and probably some of the most gutless people too, trying to appeal to their right-wing money machine rather than appeal to actual Republican primary voters and their concerns, because their concerns are definitely not what these Republican candidates' concerns are, or what those few billionaire right-wing donors and what their concerns are. No, not indeed. So they're not listening to their people either, in my opinion. Instead, they're listening to the Koch brothers, who, by the way, have done business in Iran. So basically, these Republican candidates are cozying up to businessmen who cozied up to Iran, who the Republicans supposedly hate. So that's an example of poor leadership right there. They hate Iran, but only when it's not convenient to them. Okay? Does that even make sense? Does it even make sense that you cozy up to business people who cozy up to Iran, who you supposedly don't like, as the neocon frauds that they are? That just don't make any sense to me, but that's another example of poor leadership. Anyway, my time is running out. But I thought this was an important video to do because it just shows the frustration in this country, and I think it gets to the root of what the Occupy Wall Street movement is all about. And their concerns is that there is no leadership coming from the Occupy, the leadership's coming from Occupy Wall Street, but it's not coming from the politicians. And I think that's part of the problem, although I think Wall Street anger is driving them mostly. But that could be another sub-issue within the Occupy Wall Street movement. And I think it is important that we talked about leadership tonight. So I am out of time for today. I will try to have more videos out soon. Thanks for watching.